Hey guys, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Dunns. Today we're studying Matthew 20. Let's get started.
Today's chapter starts off with a parable, or remember, a story about a man who owns a vineyard and he hires workers to work for him. John and I have lots of takeaways from this section, so we're going to come back to it at the end. After that parable, we see Jesus foretell his death to the disciples, and this is the third time that he does this. And what I love about this little section and what I see in it is that Jesus knows everything that's going to happen to him, even down to being mocked and flogged or beaten, and knowing that they're going to crucify him on a cross. And it's another really good reminder of the very reason that God sent Jesus to earth, as well as a reminder of how Jesus willingly came, knowing the plan all along. He had tons of opportunities where he could choose not to die for us, but he chose to give himself over because he loves us. After that, we hear of the mother of the sons of Zebedee. The sons of Zebedee are James and John, and this mother's trying to get a little bit of special treatment for her precious babies. My boys would call their mama a Karen, meddling in her sons' lives and even in the lives of the kingdom of heaven, trying to get into all that business. But Jesus basically tells them that she doesn't understand how this works. He tells them that actually this has all already been prepared by the Father, by God. And then finally we end the chapter with Jesus traveling out of Jericho, and he has a big crowd following him. He hardly has time to himself. So it's almost like a huge parade, and they're walking, and there are two men sitting on the side of the road, and they're blind. And as Jesus passes by, they cry out, "Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David." And Jesus stops, and they say it again, and Jesus has mercy on them, and he heals them, and they can see, and then they join in that big old parade following Jesus. So our takeaway today comes from that first section about the vineyard. Jesus starts it out saying, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard." Then he tells how the master hires a man early that morning to come work for him, and they agree on a payment, and they say, "You're going to work for me today, and I'm going to pay you a denarius when you're done." And then you see the day go on, and you see that master continue to hire more and more men all throughout the day, even to the end of the day where it's just about an hour before the workday ended. And then he decides it's time to pay them, and he decides to pay them from the last person hired to the first person. And he starts paying them, and that man who worked an hour, he gives a denarius. And the man who worked 3 hours, he gives a denarius. And all the way up until it's time to pay the first guy who worked all day, and the first guy's probably like rubbing his hands together like, "Oh, well, I worked the most and I worked the hardest. I'm going to get even more money." And the master gives him a denarius. And the man gets mad. He's like, "What in the world? I worked in the heat of the day. I worked so much longer than all these other people." And what we find is this story is actually just like his other parables. It's a story to tell another story. It's actually a story talking about what the kingdom of heaven will be like, because that's literally what Jesus said it's about at the beginning. So the master is God. The payment or the reward is the kingdom of heaven. And we see here a story that's describing how all of us may come to know the Lord at different times in our lives. Some come to know God as their Savior when they're really young. And some actually when they're super old, or even maybe they're about to die and they finally accept Christ as their Savior. I think of the thief on the cross. That's something John and I talked about, who trusted in Jesus literally right before he died. This story is a really good reminder to me to desire for all to come to a saving relationship with Jesus and to pray for that. Anyone who receives the reward of the kingdom of heaven, every single time, it's always worth celebrating and rejoicing over. And there's never a time where we need to be jealous or to think that it's unfair. We should want this for everyone. And it leads us to John's takeaway, where even if our earthly minds can't understand what we think is fair, we always go back to who God is and who Jesus is. And what did Jesus say in this section?
So my takeaway is verse 15 and 16, and it says, Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me, or begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first, and the first will be last.
Okay.
So how do I say this?
So Jesus is saying, this is his gift to give. This is God's gift to give us. And who are we to ask him, like, oh, why would you give this person that? They don't deserve it. It's really important for us to remember that not one of us deserved this. Not one of us has earned this. There is no way that we can do that, and that's why it's a gift from God. I love what Tara Lee Cobble had to say about this section. She reminds us that God gives us all a tremendous amount of grace. Entitlement, or that's a word to mean thinking God owes us something, thinking we earn something. Entitlement has no place in the heart of a child of God. Every single thing that any of us get from God is undeserved. We did not earn it. It is all blessing, and it is all God being generous to us. So my takeaway today is to thank God that he is a God of grace and generosity. I love that this is his character. What if I was that person who was on my deathbed and had not accepted Christ? What if your loved one was that person? We're thankful for all who come to know him, no matter what point in their life. And I'm thankful that God pursues us relentlessly. He continues to chase after our hearts all throughout our lives, through salvation, and then as we walk with him daily. He wants us to grow in him and to know him more and more each day, and he continues to chase after us. And as someone who can be pretty stubborn and set in my own, doing what I want to do, I'm thankful that God pursues us relentlessly. So for today's challenge, let's thank God for how he does that, how he pursues us, and he seeks to have a relationship with every single one of us. And we also want to encourage you, if you have someone in your life who has not come to a saving relationship with God, never give up on them, because God never does. Never stop praying for that person, and we join with you in praying for those people. We love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.